Hello and welcome to the Wagtail podcast. Today I have Jo with me. Hi Jo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi Brian, thank you for having me. So I'm Jo Bushby and my business is called Green Tomato Consultancy.
Cool. Thank you for coming on. We've briefly met once before and I was really inspired by everything you said, basically like your story and your business. I loved it, so I'm really pleased you've agreed to come on the podcast, so thank you.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you.
So the first question that I ask people is about their own definition of wellness and resilience, because there are some themes, but there are different definitions. So what would you say that your definition was?
I really had to think about this actually, because I think my definition of wellness is about how you feel in your own skin, and how you feel about yourself. So what I mean is, we're so conditioned to think a certain way, that we have to look a certain way, and whether we think we've got too much weight, or we're not fit enough, toned enough, whatever else, we've always got a reason to criticize ourselves. And so I think it's really important to feel comfortable in your own skin, and accept yourself, that you're never going to be perfect, and you've got to accept who you are, warts and all kind of thing. But also how you feel about yourself mentally. So actually being able to like yourself. I think to feel well and healthy and just feel good about who you are, I think you have to like who you are. And I think if you don't like who you are, you're given a negative signal to other people, and you're kind of giving them permission to treat you negatively, if that makes sense. And from a resilience point of view, I think resilience is about your strength of character. So it's about, for me, it's about how you conduct yourself, and how you handle certain situations, whether that's like flight or fight. So I think sometimes we're more resilient when we've got bigger things to handle. So sort of real big life-changing situations, we kind of can go into autopilot and be more resilient. But then something really small will happen, and that's what takes you over the edge, kind of thing. Prime example, so going through a divorce and relocating from South to Yorkshire, I knew I had to be resilient, I had to be strong, I had to have a strong mind to make those big decisions and make that happen for me and my children. And I couldn't afford to let myself be, not weak, because that's not right, but I had to find that strength and that resilience within myself to be able to make the right changes, the right decisions for us as a family. And resilience will have a different level, I think, for most people. But for me, that's kind of my definitions, if you like.
Yeah, no, they're interesting definitions, because there is a lot of, it's hard to like yourself sometimes, isn't it?
It is.
I think it's a really difficult kind of abstract thing to get your head round, actually, that actually you are important, and it's okay to like yourself. I think that's really hard. So it's important, but also the resilience, is that like a decision that you make ahead of time? So you were saying that, I know I have to be resilient, so this is how I'm going to act, or does it just come?
I think if it's a situation that is kind of happening, so like back to that where I was going through a divorce and I was having to relocate, I knew I had to be resilient to make those decisions. Even though there was a lot going on emotionally, I kind of had to let my brain take over my heart. Because if my heart had taken over my brain, well, I would have just been a crumpled mess, to be honest with you. So I knew I had to be resilient, and I had to find that inner resilient strength from somewhere in order to get us from A to B.
Yeah.
Once we derived it from A to B, then I kind of it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then when I reflected back, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got us through that, here where we are. I'm more resilient than I realised. And I think sometimes you don't always see it either.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what you're saying is like being resilient is almost like being able to separate the feelings from actually decisions that need to be made, which is another interesting way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, I suppose I never thought about it really. But I think the thing is, sometimes I think you have to, when you are making those difficult decisions for your own well-being and those around you, because at the end of the day, you've got to be, for me, I had two small children. I had to be strong for them because they needed me to be strong. And so it was important for me to not allow the emotions to take over.
Yeah.
I kind of had to compartmentalize how I dealt with that situation in order to be able to make the right decisions, or what I felt were the right decisions.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a little bit kind of about divorce and relocation. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey to kind of wellness and resilience and what that meant for you?
Yeah. So I guess my journey into a lot of health and well-being and different modulates within health and well-being happened many years ago. Unfortunately, I was in domestic violent abusive relationship when I was in my early 20s, and when it was really bizarre. I went to see a psychic with a friend who was going through a bit of a turbulent relationship, and the lady that we went to see decided she wanted to have a conversation with me, and at the time she told me that I was in a violent relationship and I needed to find strength from somewhere, back to resilience, to get out of that. And it was really bizarre because I wasn't really a big believer. I didn't believe in anything really, and she just kind of knew things that just really took me by surprise. And she said, you're in a very abusive relationship and you need to get out. And it's strange, from there I kind of went away and sort of shook it off, and then did find the strength to break away from that. And then as with my marriage, unfortunately my ex-husband ran off with another woman, and left me with two babies, 1 and 3. And again, I went to seek solace from somewhere, and I went to see another lady, and this lady introduced me into crystals. And when I went to see her, she told me that I had a big black hole in my heart, and she was right. My heart had been ripped away from me. I'm a bit old-fashioned, and when I got married, and I believed all the vows that we took, through good and bad. So everything I believed in from a family centre had been crushed to pieces. And she introduced me to crystals, at that time particularly rose quartz, and we then relocated from where we were living in the south up to Yorkshire, and I met a lady who was a Reiki master, and she was doing some work with my sister at the time, and she got me to sit down, and she basically did some Reiki on me, and it was an amazing experience. It was like someone had got a hold of these 2 big boulders off my shoulders and removed them, and it was like just really bizarre, and that kind of opened my eyes up to different possibilities, if you like. And so in between that period, I did lots of reading, so books like How to Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay and other self-help books, and started to explore about who I was and what made me tick, and why were these situations happening to me, and was it me, what had I done, before we moved up, I was in a really, really bad place mentally, and my GP gave me an option, basically 2 choices, either to go on antidepressants or get counselling. So I opted for the counselling because I needed to be compos mentis. I had 2 small children on my own, and I was in a really dark place. I had my youngest daughter not falling out of, my eldest daughter not falling out of bed. It might have been a very different story. The thud on the ceiling made me stop what I was about to do. And so I went through quite a journey of self-development, and the counselling really helped, I've got to say, because it made me realise that there was a lot of things from when I was in an abusive relationship that I'd kind of locked away in a very, very deep, dark box that I'd never dealt with. And with her help and the self-development and the crystals and stuff, I began to learn that it wasn't actually my fault, and that it was a case of circumstances. And it took a lot to realise that, because I blamed myself. I thought it's because I'm weak, it's because I'm this, I'm that, and the other, and whatever else. And so that really was the start of my journey of a very strong interest in health and well-being. And I, from having moved up and met this lady who was a Reiki master, I then went on to be trained and attuned into Reiki. So now I'm a Reiki master, and I did some further learning and trained as to do chakra balancing and energy therapy and crystal healing. And so all of those modulites, along with all the self-development training, and so I trained as a coach, and I did some further training so I could then train post-16 people, and it just, my interest in the whole well-being holistically just kind of grew, and it's continued to grow, you know. And we have crystals all over our house, and my kids have got crystals and they've grown up with them, and I practice Reiki myself every day as much as possible. Again, you're only human, so some days you just can't fit it in. I try to meditate every day, because meditation I think is really important, and it's really, really undervalued. Just allowing yourself to take, even if it's just 10 minutes out of your day, to kind of give your brain a chance to rest. You know, we live in such busy lives and in such a busy world that everyone's a million miles an hour, and people don't allow themselves time to actually just take stock and just pause for a breath. And that's kind of, so that for me is really important, to allow myself that time. And that all comes down to self-care and seeing that you are valuable enough to allow yourself to have that time, you know. And I know it's difficult if you've got children, you're working and everything else, but you know, even if it is just 10 minutes, it can make such a difference, and it calms you, it allows you to have more clarity, it keeps you more focused, it enables you to act in a more of a positive mindset, you know. And how you might react to situations will be very different, but you know, if you incorporate meditation in your daily routines, same as you would if you go for a run or swimming or whatever it might be. So yeah, so I've had quite a journey that's got me.
It's a lot of trauma. It's very, very difficult with all that trauma, and as you say, when someone experiences so much trauma, you do really blame yourself, don't you? You get guilt and you get shame and you get all those things, and sometimes you do need other people to help you realize that it's not you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing. I think, like, when I was in my early 20s, you know, it was all forms of abuse. It's financial abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. But at the time, I didn't realise that it was all those different pockets of abuse. And it's only through further learning that I've realised that, yeah, it's, you know, and it took me a long while particularly from that, because I was abused quite physically, that I couldn't look in the mirror for a long while. And yeah, so that was really difficult, you know, and I blame myself because I allowed myself to get drawn into it as well. And you know, I was left in a lot of debt. I nearly lost my flat, but I've got a lodger and got myself sorted out. And I felt so ashamed. I never told my mum and dad. So like the bruises were very easy to cover up and things like that because of where they were. And I never told my mum and dad about the financial situation or the abuse that was going on. And it was only after I'd had the courage to separate and move, kick him out basically, that my mum and dad eventually found out. And I did feel very, very ashamed that I'd allowed myself to get in that. But now I realise that, you know, it wasn't my fault, and I was very manipulated. And but yeah, it's very difficult. And you know, and I think it, you know, you hear people and they say, oh, you know, you mustn't let people treat you like that. It's not that easy.
No,
it's not that easy, because you become so dependent on that person, because you believe what they're saying, that you wouldn't survive without them, that you believe that you wouldn't survive without them. But you know, and I think that's the thing, that's all when going through a divorce and moving with my girls, and it's very important, I think, that when you go through those traumas, that as much as it's hard, you need to look after yourself even more. You know, and it is important, because at the end of the day, you know, if you've got kids, you want to be a positive role model for them, and you want them to see that, you know, I've sort of tried to encourage mine to practice self-care, and it was a lot easier when they were little, because you kind of can, you know, not control it, but you know, you could support them more. But as they get older and make their own decisions, it's a bit more difficult. All you could do is be there as and when. But yeah, it's but all those things that happen, I think they do make you stronger in the end.
Yeah. I'm really interested in your story to get out when you went, and you know, that person actually told you. I'm just so kind of fascinated by those kind of encounters, that are they by chance, or actually is that fate? You needed to meet, that you needed to be in that place, you needed to meet that person, because like the energy was, you know, you needed to have that energy with that person. I don't know what your thoughts on that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know, it was really, I mean, it was really surreal, because as I say, we went there for my friend, because she was like not happy with her boyfriend at the time, and I was like, this woman was like, I need to talk to you, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's she talking about? I'm here for her. And I was like, but when she started to say to me that, you know, you if you don't have the strength to do this, I mean, I'm not preaching to anybody on it, but basically her words were, if you don't have the strength to do this, powers that be will make it happen, and you will get the strength from somewhere to get away. Right. And it was just like, oh. And I kind of went away and sort of forgot about it. And it was only, and then it was like this gradual process of, I could feel myself getting stronger and not putting up with things the same as I was, to one day I just said, that's it. Basically, that's it. I'm done with it, and you're not doing this to me anymore. I'm worth more. And that's the thing. I think that's a really, I think if anything, if anyone's going through stuff, it's actually sitting down and thinking, how much am I really worth? You know, I am worth more than this, because it's very difficult sometimes to see that in yourself, and it's not until you become more self-aware that you can actually recognize that you are worth more, and sometimes it just needs somebody else to believe in you, and to give you those words of wisdom, I think, and to say there is something on the other side, like as in out of the situation you're in, there is something more positive that can come. Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about like Reiki and crystals. Like, could you say a little bit more about the crystals and how they kind of help you with your your well-being, your health?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm whether it's a placebo effect, don't know. There's got to be something in it, because crystals have been around for many, many years. You know, going back to Roman times, the Egyptians. You know, they'd have Romans would put amethyst crystal is sort of pretty much known as the all-round energizer and healing crystal. But amethyst is very good for reducing the effects of hangover. So the Romans, obviously back then they couldn't drink the water, so they drank wine. So they would have amethyst crystals on the wine goblets, because they believed it would reduce the hangover that they would suffer. You know, Egyptians would have like turquoise in the clothing for protection, or yeah, I mean, the crystals are just amazing, and there's all different forms as well. That you can get polished crystals, there's cluster crystals. So for example, an amethyst cluster crystal is really good to have by your front door, because it's a protective crystal, so it can ward off unwanted intruders, and it also slowly sort of spreads out healing energy into that environment. And it's very good if you suffer from fatigue or headaches or migraines, you know, and you have a piece of surgical tape, and you put it on your third eye, which is just between your eyebrows, and the piece on the nape of your neck at the back, and just lay and just you don't have to do anything special. You just lay there and just visualize those crystals are doing something to make you feel better, basically.
Yeah.
There's lots of terminology and lots of, you know, blinding with science and different things, but I don't want to do that, because it's about the intention. It's about what you want that crystal to do for you. But you can do, you can make if you've got a sore throat and you get like a blue lace agate crystal, and you put that in some water overnight, that can take the crystal out and drink the water. That can soothe a sore throat. So blue lace agate represents your throat chakra, and all blue, any blue crystals will represent your throat chakra, which governs your sense of communication, your speech, or your throat chakra may be blocked if you find you can't find your words, or you struggle to communicate how you're feeling, or if you're going to an interview, you know, or you're doing some public speaking. It's really good to, you know, hold a piece of blue lace agate on your throat chakra beforehand, or drink an elixir with it, and that can help soothe and help you to say your chosen words more effectively. You can have them in your rooms, and you know, you can use Dalmatian jasper is great if you've got a dog that's a bit wild and needs calming. Put Dalmatian jasper crystal in some water, leave it overnight, take the crystal out, give the water to the dog, it'll calm them down.
Okay. So crystals and well-being is like really very specific then, or would you say there was anything that was general for kind of general health and wellness, or it has to be unique to the person?
There are sort of probably the common ones that people go to. So like your amethyst, your clear quartz is sort of pretty much a unified crystal. Rose quartz is very good. Rose is great. It's called the crystal of love, and it's great for your self-esteem, for your heart chakra. So like you're feeling a little bit lack of self-love and you need a bit of a boost. It's great for kids or girls who are going, you know, young people that are going through puberty and adolescence. Rose quartz is great to put under, if you've got babies, put it underneath the cot. It helps them soothe at sleep nights. So you need kind of raw quartz crystals for that. But at the end of the day, if you've got an affinity with a crystal, so if you go to buy crystals, I would always advise that you actually physically go to buy them personally, so you can pick a crystal, so you can feel it. You hold it in your hand. If you feel like a sensation from a crystal, that will be the one for you.
Okay.
So follow your intuition. Don't overthink it. Your body will tell you what you need.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is not to overthink it, especially if somebody was interested in like starting out new with crystals. And but the key is, if you buy crystals, is to make sure you cleanse them as well. So there's certain ones you can rinse under running water, certain ones you might put in the sunlight or moonlight. Some crystals, such as selenite, are dissolvable, so you wouldn't wash them underwater. You'd find a different way, of maybe through the flame of a white candle if the crystal's white. And so there's different ways of doing it, but it's really important to listen to your heart, follow your intuition, and then just check how you clean them properly, because a crystal will absorb the energies of anybody else that's touched them.
Okay.
So you want that crystal to absorb your energy.
Yes, I'm really interested in crystals. I think there's so much kind of power and energy, I think, and it's really interesting as a topic to learn more about and know more about.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah.
So you've mentioned a few things that you've helped, so through kind of like your trauma and through your wellness journey. You've mentioned counseling, meditation, kind of crystals and Reiki. Is there anything that, any other strategies and tips that you've got for people?
Yeah, I think key things are, I think, be kind to yourself. You know, as hard as that is, you know, when we find it so easy to beat ourselves up and criticize ourselves, but we wouldn't do that to a friend. You know, and I think sometimes we have to take stock and think, okay, well, if I was somebody else, what would I say to them? And I know in the heat of the moment, that's easier said than done, but it's really important to be kind to yourself and to implement self-care, and to remember that being self-care isn't selfish. It's essential, because then say, you know, whether it's for yourself or you've got family, if you're not right in how you feel yourself, whether that's emotionally, physically, however your health is being affected, that's going to have a knock-on effect on those that you love and care for. So, you know, and I think quite often we tend, I don't know, particularly mums, I think, are guilty of this, that they put everybody else first because they think that's what's expected. But actually, you need to take that step back and think, no, I need to look after myself, because if I don't, well, who's going to look after my family if I'm not well? Or if I'm not, you know, I'm not thinking straight, or I'm not feeling myself, or you know, I think it's really, really important to take that time. And I mean, and yeah, I think sometimes you don't always see it, as I say, when you're in it. And I mean, I'm going through menopause, and I've been perimenopausal since about 2009. And I think, you know, even within that, going through that transitional period of your life, even more so, it's important to take care of yourself, and to find the courage within you sometimes to say no. And that's really hard, you know, that's really, really hard. And I think, so strategies I would certainly recommend are: be kind to who you are, and don't be afraid to celebrate, you know, small achievements and wins and things like that. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, some days it might even be the fact that you've actually got out of bed and got yourself dressed and ready, and, you know, give yourself a pat on the back. Because if you're feeling really rubbish and you manage to do that on a day where you're having a bad day, well, you should be really proud of yourself. And you know, that self-care, saying no, try and implement a little bit of meditation. You know, it doesn't, I think sometimes people are afraid of meditation. They think they've got a special equipment or stuff, or but, you know, or you mustn't fall asleep. Well, if you fall asleep, it shows that you're relaxing. If you fall asleep, your subconscious mind will still, you know, follow the if it's I've forgotten the name of it, but if it's a guided meditation, you know, your subconscious will still absorb any information there, and if you fall asleep, so what? Who's gonna? No one's gonna tell you off. Do you know what I mean? It's it's not going to do you any harm. And I think the other thing is as well is, like my dad, he's not here anymore. He passed away, but he always used to say, don't accept someone else's monkey. And what he means by that is that quite often you come across people that are either energy vampires, so they zap everything out of you, or if they've got something going on in their life and they need to offload, they'll offload it onto you, and then you'll make them feel better, and they'll go away feeling happy and a spring in their step, and they'll leave you with that. And so I think that's really important. But there are some things, there are techniques you can do about that. You know, you can start kind of recreate cords of attachment to everybody that we meet. Yeah. And sometimes those cords of attachment are not good. So particularly if you're sort of a bit of a sensitive soul, or you're quite open to things, those cords of attachment can be quite strong. And you might find that you absorb other people's energies quite rapidly. Okay. And a really good way to do that is just kind of visualize, stand there in front of a mirror or wherever in the morning, visualize yourself just cutting those cords from the sides, from the top, the front, back, the bottom, and then just, there's a bit more to this, but I don't want to freak people out, but and then just visualize, you know, drawing a big white light bubble around you, and that bubble will repel people's energies that you don't want to absorb. And it's a great way to protect yourself.
So that cutting of the cords, you will know instinctively who that person is and what needs to be cut, and it would just be a kind of person that you know, or a one-off situation. What kind of thing would that be?
Could be anybody. Could be someone you're passing down the street. You know, if you've ever stood at a bus stop and someone, a stranger, might start offloading all their troubles to you. Yeah. You know, do you want all their troubles? Do you want, you want to listen? You want to just be ears, a friendly pair of ears to somebody, but you don't want to absorb their troubles. Yeah. So you could do it sort of just as a general rule of thumb, every morning, just, or stand in the shower, and just visualize, all that shower water just running down you, and that's just going to protect you from any negative energies that you might come into contact with. Yeah. And and that's just something that you can just do, and wash those, even if you've got troubles yourself and you just want to just stand under the shower and just let those troubles wash away.
I think visualization is really powerful. I'm only just beginning to learn how powerful visualization is, but what you're saying really actually does bring to light a really good example of how you can do it with other people's energy.
It is really important, and I think in that, and as we obviously we're interacting with more and more people, and there's so much going on that people have got different opinions, and and it's very easy to get drawn into people's dramas, and and that takes you back to what, like my dad used to say, don't accept someone else's monkey. It's really important, because whether it's friends, family, and we've all got those friends who offload stuff onto us, and they leave you with all their emotional rubbish, if you like, and they go away feeling better, and you're left thinking, quite down maybe, or quite low, or or you get drawn into it if they're sort of moaning about their other half, and then you might start moaning about your other half, and then before you know it, you hate him. Do you know what I mean? Or her, or whatever the case may be, or so things like they're simple strategies that don't cost a lot, don't cost anything really, and they're easy for people to do themselves. And no one, if you don't want to tell anyone that you do it, no one needs to know.
Yeah. Because you want to be that person, don't you? Like, you want to be that person that listens, then lets that person go away, all happy and lighter. But yeah, there is a cost, and to know that there's strategies that you can do, so you can still be that empathetic person, but you can still protect yourself kind of at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially when you're working in that kind of field as well, when you're, whether it's counselling, coaching, energy work, holistic therapies, it's all energy. You know, everything around us is energy, whether it's, you know, you don't necessarily always have to see it for it to be energy.
Yeah.
You know, money is energy as well. You know, people say, oh, money's the root of all evil. Well, it isn't, because with it you can do an awful lot more. You know, you can make memories and have experiences, and you know, it is all energy. You know, the drink, the water we drink, the food we eat, you know, it's all about your mindset and changing your mindset on how you think about things.
Yeah, definitely. I've got to link that mindset back to what you were talking about earlier about whether if you've just got up today, and if that's a win for sometimes, because it's about expectations, isn't it? And expectations is mindset as well, because sometimes we're all setting our expectations just far too high. Like, I've been ill for a few days and I haven't really got the work done that I wanted to get done because I've not felt well, and like, I'm beating myself up about it. It's like, why are you beating yourself up about it? Actually, you got a shower, you got dressed, and you actually went to work. So actually, that's enough. That's enough. And but we've always got these higher expectations, and I think it is important. Let's change that mindset. Let's change that perspective, and for more towards our well-being.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, and it's like, you know, who decides how much pressure should be put on you, you know? And I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies, in that, like you say, you know, we set those expectations far too high, and in some regards, and yet, you know, in other situations we bring that glass ceiling down so much that we don't value who we are because we don't think we're worth it. And it's like, where does that balance fit? And I think it does all come back to sort of, you know, the mindset and knowing that you're enough, you know, whatever that might be, whatever that might look like, you are enough. And you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And you know, I mean, today's a prime example. So this morning I was outside in the garden, that we've got a puppy. She got under my feet, my foot got caught in the hose pipe, I fell over, hurt my bum, killing me, one cheek. And then I was driving out to work for a meeting, and traffic was horrendous. Now, if I wasn't mindful, I would have, that whole scenario could have set my day up to thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to have a bad day now. But I didn't. I just thought, no, put it down to what it was. You know, I fell over. I didn't really seriously hurt myself, apart from I burnt my bum cheek. You know, I stopped myself from hitting my head. Dog's fine. Yeah, the traffic was bad, but it was just traffic. I arrived safely, and the day went on, and it's been a good day. You know, but people who might not have that positive mindset, straight away, that could be, well, I've fallen over, the traffic's been really bad, I've had a really bad day, and this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong. And do you know what I mean? Your mind is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote that I read recently, and I wish I could remember where I read it, but I can't. But I'll tell you it. And it goes along the lines of, did you really have a bad day? Or did you just have 20 minutes where things didn't quite go to plan, they weren't so optimal, and then you set up a vibe for the rest of the day yourself?
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Your mind is an amazing tool, and we don't understand it enough. We don't give it enough respect sometimes, I think. You know, and I think we just need to take that little step back, and just allow ourselves just that you know, that breath, and think, okay, let's put things in perspective here, you know, in the scheme of things. It's like, you know, like we've had really, really, like, obviously it's been, the weather's been staggering, you know, but I think even that, you know, for me, I feel very grateful that we've been safe. You know, we've been safe, our home's been safe. All those poor people that have, you know, have been affected because of the hot weather, whether, you know, whether that's themselves or, I know it's material things, but their home and what knock-on effect that's going to have to them. And I think that's the other thing, actually, I would say as well, is it's really important to be grateful for every day. Be grateful every day. Celebrate being grateful every day. And, you know, a really good strategy that I've suggested to people in the past, and I try to do it every day, is write a list of things you're grateful for. And every day just start off with 5, and every day just add another 5, and that list soon builds up, and that sense of gratitude makes you realize just how fortunate you really are. Even in the darkest of times, there's still something to be grateful for.
It's a good tip. So tell us about what you do then, and tell us about your work and how you promote wellness in other people. You've already touched on it a little bit with Reiki, but I'm sure there's much more that you can tell us.
Yeah, so my business started last year. So I was attuned to Reiki, oh my God, going back to 2008, 2009. And so my business, Green Tomato Consultancy. So first of all, I'll tell you why it's called Green Tomato Consultancy. So green represents your heart chakra, which represents obviously love and prosperity, growth, abundance. For me, it also represents a sort of being authentic and genuine as well. And tomato, you know, you get your seeds, you plant them, sow them, you water them, you nurture them, they grow into flowers, and then those flowers turn into fruit, and then the cycle starts again. So you're continually growing, you're continually renewing yourself, you know. So that's where the name comes from. That's a great name. So my tagline is grow, thrive and connect. Okay. So because we grow, we thrive, and we connect to different people, you know, and so there's a few arms to the business. So obviously I do the holistic treatments, as I've mentioned, but I also do personal development coaching and mentoring, which incorporates anything from one-to-one or workshops, but you know, it's very much person-centered and led by whoever I'm working with. But you know, it's confidence, self-esteem, raising their aspirations, accepting responsibility for themselves, and all the things that sort of go under that umbrella, you know, knowing that they are worth it, and just developing them. You know, it might be imposter syndrome or whatever barriers might be stopping them from being the person that they want to be or achieving what they want to achieve. And then there's I do work with sole traders and micro businesses, so up to like maybe 5 employees. So because of my background has also been very much around business, so I like to work with sole traders and new businesses and those small businesses around creating a business plan or business plan reviews, helping them find their USP, helping them identify their pricing strategy, and getting their business where they sort of off the ground, giving them the tools to get the foundation in place. And then I also do a lot of menopause work. So it's weird because I kind of done loads of stuff and loads of research through my own journey of the menopause. And a few years ago, I started putting some stuff together, and then I talked myself out of it, and I procrastinated. And then more recently, because of my journey, I've been thinking, you know, I felt this urge that I needed to share and support more people. So I also do menopause coaching workshops and seminars. And that's to individuals, but also to employers. So I'll go into places of work and work with, if there's a team of managers, you know, how they can support their staff, or to the employees on how they can get supported, and, you know, the symptoms, coping mechanisms, strategies that they can put in place. So just supporting them really and not just the person, like not just you know, the women that are going through it, but also the men that might be involved in their lives, you know, whether it's managers or colleagues and family members. You know, it's really important to know how to support that person in your life, whatever guise that might be, through that transitional period in their life, because it can go on for, you know, 15 years. So it's really important that to raise awareness and to know that the support is there, really.
I think it's great. It's great that you're doing that in organisations, because it can affect women at work so much. You know, I've read a little. I need to know. I need to educate myself more about menopause. But you know, I've read about just the discomfort and the heat and the anxiety and the brain fog, and this all hits a woman's self-esteem in the workplace, and it can affect. You know, it can affect how you're wanting to perform on certain days, perhaps.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. Hard. It can. I mean, it's all, you know, the number of women that have been put on like performance reviews because they're not performing like they used to. And actually, it's not because they're not performing, they haven't got the capability. It's because their hormones are all over the place. And, you know, that it's back to that, celebrating the fact they've actually got out of bed that day, because they might have had the most atrocious night, not being able to sleep, hot flushes, you know, your skin changes, your skin dries up in places you don't want to talk about too often, you know, your moods, you know, one day you could be fine and next day you just get this red mist that comes from your toes and it comes up through your body and it's like uncontrollable. And I mean, years ago they used to put menopausal women into asylums, you know, and you hear people going through it and they go on, you know, oh, I'm going a bit doolally, and it's like, you know, it's a really exciting time to celebrate, because, you know, your life, your body is changing, so you can actually say goodbye to periods eventually, and it's like, well, thank God for that. But to get to that stage, you've got to go through quite a bit, you know, and you know, and to be it's bizarre, because you have to have had not had a period for 12 months and 1 day. So your 12 months, your perimenopause can go on for years, but you have to have gone through 12 months consistently of no periods. 1 day for the menopause. Beyond that, you're then postmenopausal.
Right.
But that perimenopausal, leading up to that 12 months, could go on for years.
Yeah.
And, you know, people, you know, migraines, dry eyes, itchy eyes, you know, even down to having, it's called BMS, burning mouth syndrome, where your mouth feels like it's on fire, or you get metallic taste in your mouth, and tinnitus, you know, and itchy ears, and the list, honestly, if you saw the list, it's just, I've got a two A4 sheet of paper with all the symptoms on, and it's just,
wow.
It's educating and raising awareness, not just with the person that's going to go through it, and obviously then you've got people, you know, who might be going through gender reassignment, would also suffer from menopause, but it's the partners, it's the kids, it's, you know, the work colleagues. The more they understand about what that person's going through, the more support they can get, and the more positive that journey will be. Yeah. Rather than them trying to suffer in silence, which is what a lot of women do. You know, yeah. You know, and you know, things down to, like, you know, weight gain and sort of low libido, and you know, and you hear of like a lot of women feeling pressured by their other halves because their sex drive's gone down the pan, and then they're feeling guilty. Back to the guilt thing, feeling guilty because they're not, you know, sorting out their other halves and doing what they feel they should be doing. But if people understand, and, you know, like in the workplace, the brain fog, and, you know, small adaptations, you know, and maybe a changing work pattern, or, you know, allowing for sort of a bit of a afternoon nap, even if they go and sit in the car for half an hour just to recharge the batteries and things like that. So there's loads of things that can be done, and I think it's great that, you know, a lot of celebrities are sort of at that age as well now, and, you know, and they're behind it. in the workplace, there's so much more that needs to be done. You know, I think the statistics are staggering. It's like 25% of working women will leave their jobs because of menopause symptoms. Menopause symptoms.
Right. Because I think, I mean, there's so much about that, isn't there? Like, there's women are never encouraged to talk about their bodies, you know, periods and puberty, anything, and it just continues, doesn't it, through life? And it's just another thing that women have to just get on with and not speak about because it might embarrass others, or you know. So it's about time, I think, that just there was more support, and just these things aren't taboo subjects because they're things that every woman goes through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something like 99% of women will go through the menopause. Yeah. And what's interesting is that, you know, obviously it's a huge number, but it's not 99% of women will have babies. But obviously they've got maternity cover, maternity protection. You know, you go through school and you get like your talks about puberty and your periods and stuff like that, and then people talk about being pregnant, and you know, you get pregnancy stories and maternity and all the rest of it. But there's such a stigma around the menopause, and it's like we're all going to go through it, you know. And some women unfortunately go through it in their 20s. You know, there's been case studies of women going through it in their 20s, or you know, it might be a medically sort of induced menopause, you know, if they've had surgery that's caused and brought on an early menopause. But then, you know, it's interesting because although the menopause isn't a protected characteristic in its own right, obviously it does fall under Sex Discrimination, Age Discrimination, Disability Act, because it can be debilitating, gender reassignment. So there are, under the Equality Act, there are areas that menopause will fall under. And that's something that employers have got to really take notice of.
Yeah.
And just a duty of care, you know. Why would you not want to, as an employer, look after a member of staff that's got experience and knowledge and skills that you've invested in probably to train and to develop, and then because they don't feel that they're being looked after or just can't physically mentally cope with what they've got to do, leave.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry about that, my dog's just barked. You know, and then you think, well, they've then got to then advertise for a replacement. They've got to train that, you know, recruit for that replacement, maybe pay recruitment fees, and then train that person up. I'm just going to shut that door a minute. You know, and then they've got to, sorry, I'm trying to shut my door. I was trying to do that without it being the obvious thing. You know, and then they've got to try and, you know, train that person up to a certain level, and it's like that cost is quite exponential, really.
Yeah.
And it will be far more than what it would take to actually look after that person that's going through the menopause. Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to be compassionate as well? Just on top of all that, the cost and you know, in the workplace, just compassion. So important right now, especially.
Yeah, and it all goes back to that being kind, and you know, and there are some organisations that are doing great stuff, you know, like putting long cardigans in the toilets, you know, fans, and you know, really listening to their staff and really not just giving lip service, but really genuinely offering support, which is fantastic. Just be great for more to be following that. So yeah, so that's kind of all of that encompasses in kind of what I do, and the main thing is about, for me, my biggest driver is I love to help people, and it's about listening to what they need and what they want, and working together to find solutions for them in order to get where they want to be. Yeah.
I'm gonna put your website and your details in the show notes if anybody's interested. And so we've reached the last question now, which is, what is your biggest strength or value or personality trait that you use to boost your wellness or maintain it, or in a positive way?
Oh gosh, I think I try to stay positive. I think that's really, really important, to try and stay positive. And I think be careful what you wish for. So sometimes, you know, you can. So this is an example. Years ago, when I used to drive up from down south and see my mum and dad, we used to drive through a village, and I used to say, "Oh, it's so lovely. This little village is lovely. And beautiful hanging baskets, and it was just really quaint. And oh, I'd love to live here one day." Well, bizarrely enough, when I first moved up here, that's the village I went and lived in.
Okay.
Be careful what you wish for, because you might get your wish, but it's what happens and what goes in order for you to get that wish.
Okay.
That's one thing, which goes back to being about your mindset.
Yeah.
So be clear about what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Be clear about what you want, whether that's from your health, your business, your career, your family, friends, relationships. Be clear about what it is you want from life. Be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think it's really important to, I wear my art on my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit of an open book. But I think being true and being authentic is really important for me. It's a big value. And be honest and be kind, and not being afraid to say you've got something wrong as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of the day, we are human. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a CEO of a multi-billion-pound organisation or whether, you know, you clean toilets. Everybody is the same as far as I'm concerned. And I think, you know, we all come in the world the same, we all go the same. It's just what we do in the middle is a bit different. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that anyone's better than anybody else. And I think for me that's really, really important. And I think you often find that sometimes when people get to the top, that can be a very lonely place, because people forget that, yeah, you know, you might be very successful or you might be there, but they're still human. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. I think we need to remind ourselves that everybody is human and we do get things wrong, and that doesn't make us bad people. That's, you know, and I think one of the hardest things is to ask for help. Yeah. But naturally, as humans, if we ask for help, generally most people will want to help. Yeah. But it's one of the hardest questions we ask. Yeah. You know, I think most people, if they sat down for a minute and actually, when was the last time they asked somebody for help, they might be surprised when, you know, when they think back on it, kind of thing. But yeah, they're kind of the things that, and promote. I mean, you just mentioned about putting my website on. My website's not completely done yet. I'm doing it myself, but it's on my. I've set myself a target to get it done. So by the end of this month, and finished, and I will be celebrating when I do, in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Because it's something that I've procrastinated over, but that's a whole different story. And I think that comes back to not believing in yourself. Mm-hmm. So that I've set myself a goal, and then that's the other thing as well, I think, is setting yourself small goals, you know, and celebrating those goals. Like if you manage to get out of bed and it's been a chore, then that's, you know, whatever you might want to celebrate with, whether it's a bar of chocolate or whatever it might be, whatever your go-to thing is. But yeah, I think they're my key values and strengths. I think one of my key strengths is treating people equally, and I think that is just so important. And yeah, it's really important, and I think it's really important. It's funny with like Reiki. So going back to when I was first sort of attuned to Reiki. I did actually have a business then doing holistic therapies, and at the time I think it was a bit ahead of its time, and I come across a lot of people that called it voodoo or mumbo jumbo and all that kind of thing, and I kind of took notice of them and closed the book on it to sort of to the public eye, but kept doing it myself because my beliefs were really strong, and I'd seen the benefits, and I've seen amazing benefits of people I've treated, which is a whole different set of stories. But now I've shouted from rooftops. It's like, if people don't want to hear about, that's fine, because it's not for everybody. It's about keeping an open mind, and you know, Reiki is about relaxation and that positive energy, and that's that really. That's me. I'm gonna shut up now.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's been really nice to talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Brian, for having me. You know, and letting me speak and ramble.
No, it's really important to hear, because that authenticity and what you do with the menopause and just all round your story and that post-traumatic growth and what you do to get through and how you've done it is inspiring. So thank you for talking about it.
Thank you so much. And, yeah, brilliant.